Welcome back, America. Article 3 Project founder Mike Davis. He joins us now to discuss the Wisconsin Supreme Court race happening today. Very important election and the Trump indictment. Mike, great to have you back, sir. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so John and I have both heard some numbers coming from Wisconsin as far as the that seat that's available on the Wisconsin Supreme Court for Dan Kelly. That is something that's very, very important for Republicans. It obviously sustains the majority on that state Supreme Court. What are you hearing from there?
Well, it's critically important that Wisconsin voters get out and vote today. These elections matter. Judges matter. We're going to look at it could be a 4-3 conservative Supreme Court or a 4-3 liberal Supreme Court. And if Dan Kelly is elected, we'll have a 4-3 conservative Supreme Court. That means that Wisconsin citizens will keep their First Amendment right to speak, to associate, to worship, and their Second Amendment right to defend themselves and their families. If you get a liberal judge on this Supreme Court and they flip the Supreme Court, we saw this during COVID. We saw that these liberal judges have no problem censoring, silencing, deplatforming people. You'll lose your First Amendment rights to speak, to worship, to associate. You'll lose your Second Amendment rights to protect yourselves and your families. So it's critically important that people get out and vote.
The stakes are high. It seems like a mid-year election, or mid-season election, but it's an important one, and it will have profound consequences going into 2024. Speaking of profound consequences, we crossed the Rubicon the last few days. Obviously, District Attorney Bragg has brought the indictment that we all got leaked in advance. We knew every bit of it before it ever got out there. The leaking beforehand, and then that extraordinary press conference this afternoon on the courthouse steps by District Attorney Alvin Bragg. Is there some room for a bar complaint or some action against his law license? It seems like he did something I've never seen a prosecutor do before.
Yeah, this is an abomination. What Soros-funded Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg is doing here. He's bringing this unprecedented indictment against a former president and potentially a future president based upon bogus, trumped-up charges that were rejected by the Manhattan DA's office, the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's office, the Federal Election Commission, and Bragg himself. And then Bragg took pressure from the left and brought in this top Biden Justice Department political appointee, this longtime political operative, Matthew Colangelo, and that was back in December. And then they revived this zombie case against Trump. Bragg came out and did this just shocking press conference today that was completely unethical, tried to try this case in the media against President Trump and would not even explain what the legal basis was of his indictment. He said he didn't have to, that he didn't have to have the legal basis in his indictment. So yes, Alvin Bragg should resign. He's a disgrace. He should face a bar complaint. And frankly, he may face arrest for a malicious prosecution in violation of President Trump's civil rights. This is third world banana republic, Marxist hellhole level stuff that Bragg has gone to here.
Mike, I wanted to ask you about something that I think, on its face, it's a silver lining. The fact that there is no gag order. What do you think it says about that judge, Juan Merchan, that he didn't impose a gag order? Or do you think that that option was ever even on the table to begin with?
Well, Bragg's office, the DA's office, asked for this unprecedented gag order against a former president Trump in this case, and that would be just absolutely insane if you gag a defendant. The whole point of a gag order is to protect a defendant's Sixth Amendment right to a fair trial, not the government's right to a fair trial. They don't have a right to a fair trial. It's the defendant who has the Sixth Amendment right, and a defendant has First Amendment rights. And you have this Manhattan DA's office clearly illegally leaking from the grand jury, constantly doing these unethical press conferences that we just saw today from Bragg, the dumbest prosecutor I've ever seen on TV in my life. I can't believe that this guy got a degree from Harvard and Harvard Law School. If I were the dean at Harvard Law School, I would tell him to stay off TV because he's an embarrassment to Harvard Law School. But they did this unethical press conference today. This is outrageous what he's doing. But what do we expect from a George Soros-funded DA? This is the guy who took $1.1 million in George Soros support to win this office. So of course he's going to be a left-wing partisan operative.
Mike, I know you can't look at this in isolation because Alvin Bragg is a creature of a larger machinery that is turning out weaponized FBI agents, weaponized FBI lawyers, weaponized FBI prosecutors, local, federal. The judicial system seems like, at least the one that we grew up with and the one that dominated our country for 240 plus years, it feels to many like it's hanging on a thread. How do we start to reclaim the system, to reclaim justice being blind, to remove politics from these decisions? There seems to be a cultural issue with the people that are taking on these jobs.
There's several ways. Number one, Wisconsinites need to get out and vote today for the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Number two, people need to rally behind President Trump. It doesn't matter if you like him or not. This is so much bigger than President Trump. So these Republicans, conservatives, Trump deranged rhinos, this is about our republic. And as you said, John, we've crossed the Rubicon here, and this is unacceptable. House Oversight Chairman Jim Jordan needs to issue subpoenas immediately for Alvin Bragg and Matthew Colangelo, the Biden Justice Department political operative. He can do this under Section 5 of the 14th Amendment, where Congress has the duty to make sure that states are providing due process and equal protection. That's clearly not happening in Manhattan. Yeah. They also take federal funding in Manhattan. They're contorting federal election laws. This is a malicious prosecution. It's election interference. That people need to fight back immediately on this. And frankly, Republican state attorney general, DAs, prosecutors need to give Democrats a healthy dose of their own medicine. Get creative.
Yeah.
Mike, before we let you go, we've just got about a minute left. John spoke about this machine that Alvin Bragg operates within. There's another person who operated, past tense, within that machine, Lori Lightfoot. She was given the boot by the people of Chicago, a very, very deep blue city. Now they have their elections today between Brandon Johnson and Paul Vallas. Does that give you hope for the future?
Well, if Paul Vallas wins, it gives me hope for the future because he's the less crazy of the two Democrats, the least dangerous of the two. I guess if Chicago residents want to keep getting carjacked and robbed and raped and murdered, vote for another leftist. If you just want a reasonably moderate Democrat who's going to support the police and support businesses, vote for Vallas.
Yeah. I mean, you juxtapose that with the fact that Alvin Bragg reduced, 52% of misdemeanors in New York City or misdemeanors from felonies to misdemeanors. It's incredible to see. Hopefully they'll get the message. But Mike Davis, we love when you come here and deliver your message. Founder and president of the Article 3 Project. Mike, thanks for being here.
Thank you.